Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Dr. Joe Solucio back with you again and again. And as I'm recording this, we are in Black History Month, an important month to recognize our colleagues across higher education and those in public service doing great things to advance many of social issues that we care about. Here at the EdUp Experience, I want us all to remember how many amazing leaders we have and how many diverse and amazing leaders we have across the industry, and why it's so important to represent our students at the highest levels of leadership. So the student is changing, right? That's one thing we know. The modern learner, the new majority, if you will. Students are coming with new demands, new expectations, and we want to be at the front end of it here with the conversations we have on EdUp. But a reminder for all of you writers out there, and I'll just tell a quick story and then I'll bring in our guest. I wrote this great article, or at least I thought it was great. And I had to go around and I went to the trade publications. I said, "You guys want this?" And everybody said no. Nobody wanted my article. So I said, you know what? I'm going to publish it myself. I have a website. Elvin and I, co-founder of the EdUp Experience, we publish podcasts. Why can't we start a publication site? So on our site, the EdUp Experience, at edupexperience.com, we have turned a section into EdUp editorials, where you, our colleagues across higher education, college presidents, faculty, staff, have something that you want to write about. Perhaps it's some innovation you have at your campus. Perhaps it's something that you're doing, something good that's happening that you think higher education needs to know about. Write for us, right? Send us your article to EdUp at edupexperience.com. We will publish it and we will push it out to our audiences across the world and give you a way to get your voice heard without begging like I had to do. So that's why we are here to serve you, the amazing people across higher ed. And I've got a leader today that is also serving higher education and the students in an amazing HBCU. And we're honored to have him here. Ladies and gentlemen, he's Dr. David K. Wilson. He's the president of Morgan State University. David, welcome to an EdUp. Mike, how are you?
Joe, I'm doing quite well, and it's really a pleasure and an honor to be here on EdUp Experience.
Well, it's an honor to have you. First of all, higher education is a funny business that we're in, isn't it? So many stakeholders, so many things affect us. Politically, in society, the different stakeholders and boards and students, of course, that's who we serve. But at the center of all that, we have to still run this institution with this mission. So tell us about Morgan State University. Where are you? Who do you serve? And how do you serve them?
We're excited to announce the first ever, first of its kind higher education podcast conference, brought to you by Edu Alliance, the EdUp Experience, and Podium. This is happening Saturday, July 12th at the University of Illinois Chicago campus. This is an in-person event, one day only, the first of its kind. This is for people working in and around higher education who are interested in starting a podcast, who may have a podcast, want to learn more about podcasting. So if you want to be there, please go to higheredpodcon.com. That's higheredpodcon.com to learn how you can get your early bird registration, see who the keynote will be, and how you can submit proposals to be a part of this amazing inaugural conference. So that, again, go to higheredpodcon.com to learn more. Do you want to get invites to special events? Do you want to get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, behind-the-scenes episodes, and original content? Do you want to accelerate your professional development? Well, you can go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and become a subscriber today.
Oh, wow. So first of all, Morgan State University is an incredible institution that, if indeed it did not exist in the constellation of American higher education, we would have to found it. But luckily, it has been around for 158 years, came into existence in 1867. Now, let me just say that in 1867, there were 9 universities that came into existence in America. And based on my research, that's the largest number of universities founded in one year in the history of American higher education. And Morgan was one of them. And all 9 of those institutions were, quote, HBCUs. And so Morgan has gone from 7 students in 1867 and 2 professors to 11,000 students today. They come from 46 states and over 70 countries. We have reached enrollment capacity here. We have to pause for a moment and build new residential halls and allow our infrastructure to catch up with the demand. But clearly, there is a high demand across the nation and indeed across the world for Morgan State University sheepskin.
Amazing.
So my brain starts breaking when you talk about topping out on enrollment. It doesn't have, we hear about institutions today who are depressed on enrollment. They've got buildings that they're not using. We've seen closures. And in fact, if you actually go back, 3 years, we were talking about the demise of HBCUs. And that's just not the case. They've come back. There's been a resurgence in HBCU and interest. And then you get to the point where, wait, you're max capacity? How does it? I mean, that's awesome. And then that brings a whole nother set of problems. I have so many questions in there, but did you think you would hit capacity and be at a point where you've got to work on infrastructure to catch up with demand?
Well, when I came to Morgan, and I'm about to conclude my 15th year as president, our enrollment was about 7,200 students. And at that particular point, we thought we could grow our enrollment to about 10,000, but we could reach 10,000 by 2030. And so here we are, we have reached 10,000 students well ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
And so we have been able to do that by basically looking at our curriculum and making sure that there was appropriate curricular realignment. That is, we have brought online here at Morgan some baccalaureate degrees where we are the only university in the state of Maryland offering those degrees, and one of just a few universities in the state offering them. They're some of our fastest growing degrees. So, for example, we have a BS degree in mechatronics engineering, a BS degree in cloud computing, and these are really, really rapidly growing programs, BS degree in interior design. And so the students then, they began to look in at Morgan, and they began to research the quality and the excellence in the academic degree programs. And I tell you, it is overflowing. And then I would take them to, what type of professors teach at Morgan? And then our professors are being admitted into the national academies. They are national fellows. And so there's no drop off there in terms of the quality and the excellence that really form the foundation of Morgan. Then they look at other things. Well, can I study abroad? Yes, you can. Can I work in a laboratory with a professor where I can bring my own research question to that laboratory as an undergraduate? Yes, you can. Oh, and then finally, if I came to a place like Morgan, can I walk the campus every single day and not have to ever think about whether this institution wants me there? And when they get to that point and the institution exudes to them a sense of belonging, and they can use this foundation to springboard any place in the world they want to go, that's why we have bucked the trend. And that's why our enrollment right now is off the chart.
Love it. I love this. This is just a great discussion because it's on the rarer side when you bust at the seams, because there isn't the mission as an educator as we have is we want to help every student. We want to help. And when you're at infrastructure, I mean, you got enough room in your office over there. That's a trip. You could turn that into a triple, no problem, right?
We thought about it. As a matter of fact, I said, how many students can we actually house here? You can see in my office, of course, I refuse to build any kind of administrative building while I'm president. And so, my office is in one of the most legacy, old buildings on campus. But absolutely, if it comes to that,
I'll balance, right? Like,
I'll be more than happy.
Yeah.
Joe, if it came to that, I'd be more than happy, if you will, to have my little office at the corner of the hallway and give it up for more students to live here, if indeed it reached that point.
Yeah, but there's this balance of we got to help everybody, but we do have to have the infrastructure catch up, because if we take in more students, even if we find a place in David K. Wilson's office and put a bunch of triples in there, and we start busting at the seam for students, then we're out of whack on our services. We're out of whack on our employees and the faculty and the classes that were offered. So talk about that. Can you give us insight into this conversation that you have with your cabinet where you say, look, guys, we have to get the infrastructure ready to serve more students. If we take in more, and we might find ways to, we could rent this hotel down the road if we have to, or whatever it might be.
Yes.
We're out of whack on how we can serve these students, and that's going to hurt the brand legacy and so on.
And we have rented a couple of hotels over the last 4 or 5 years. And basically, we decided that we had to, with a high degree of intentionality, plan for the complete renovation of all of our legacy residential halls here on campus. And then we had to build new residential halls. And so as it stands right now, we have completed the renovations of 2 legacy halls. We took them offline for 15 months. We gutted them. Only thing that was left was the skin of the buildings, and all those rooms were new. And then we have built 2 10-story towers here on campus,
wow.
Housing about 1,400 students amongst the 2 of them. We now are going to completely renovate another legacy building, if you will, starting in May. And then we're going to break ground on another 10-story tower to house about 600 students or so. And so those are the conversations we were having with our cabinet, which is over the next decade, every single legacy of buildings that have been on campus for a long time, residential hall must be completely renovated. And then at the same time or simultaneously, we have to build new residential halls because our students will not be staying in hotels. Our students will not be staying in facilities that is going to rob them of really what it means to be a Morganite.
Yeah.
What it means to really, really experience this institution, both in the classroom and beyond. And that's where we are. And that's not just on the residential side, Joe. It's on the academic side, too. So during my presidency here now, we have just eclipsed $1.2 billion in capital investments. And we have $650 million planned. And so within the next 2 years or so, Morgan will have invested close to $2 billion in the transformation of our campus to a point where our goal will be met in terms of capital preeminence. So we're putting our students in world-class laboratories. They are, going to world-class classrooms. We've just gotten approval from Governor Moore here in Maryland to build a world-class science building. It's $337 million. And so we really are saying to our state, and we're saying to the nation, look, we know how to educate students here at Morgan who are going to be, hands down, our future innovators. We know how to educate students who will be our future leaders. We know how to educate students who will be our future scientists, who will be our future lawyers, who will be in a position to lead this nation and lead the world in a way where if that world or that nation is not presenting itself to them right now in a way that they think it should be, they will be equipped with the tools to make it right. And that message is resonating across the state of Maryland, across the nation, and indeed around the world.
When you get up in the morning, do you look in the mirror and think this to yourself?
I am the smartest man alive!
It's so good what you're doing. You probably have an amazing team around you that helps you execute these things.
I have the best team, I think, that exists. Now, other presidents and chancellors will say the same thing. And so I've been around higher education for a while. I came here, I was a chancellor within the University of Wisconsin system, had been out there, I think, for almost 5 years. Wonderful, wonderful colleagues. I was vice president at Auburn University for 11 years and have a wonderful experience there and led to a transformation of that institution in certain spaces. And then I was at Rutgers. And so I have been around the horn here. But the senior team that I have here at Morgan is absolutely outstanding. And we have a great, outstanding. We have great great esprit de corps. They are well skilled, and above all, they are committed to the mission of the institution.
Talk about students a little bit. I mean, this is what we do, right? We serve students. That's what we do in higher ed. Over 15 years, which, by the way, congratulations on elevating the overall average of college presidents, because we have seen that decline. I think it was 5 or 6 years. It's under 5. It's like 4.7 or something like that. College presidencies are a tough gig. Some people last. Some institutions last. I think the board president relationship is so important. What's been your secret to longevity over 15 years? Because the reason I ask that is because I've talked to literally hundreds of presidents, and there's almost this reinvention. When I talk to presidents that have been there for 10, 15, 20 years, they've had to reinvent themselves a couple of times. Students ebb and flow through societal changes and if you look at the 15 years you've been a president, to say that we've had societal changes would be an understatement. That always exists. How students feel and evolve always changes. So you have to reinvent yourself as a leader multiple times. What's been your secret to reinvention, staying with the pace, staying focused over a long period of time?
Yeah, it is to be in the moment. It's to be almost like 3 places, right? You have to understand the past, but not live there. Mm. And you have to be in the present in order to lead effectively in the present, understanding the past, understanding the trajectory that you're on. And then I have embraced this notion that as president, I have to challenge myself to look into the future in a way where I can see, if I'm on that interstate called the future interstate, 10 miles down that interstate, and if there are 5 exits along the 10-mile stretch, I have to challenge myself to think about what is on each of those exits that we have not reached yet. And then how do you kind of prepare the institution to continue down the interstate, anticipate what is on these exits, and then always be relevant. And that's how I think we have been able to keep Morgan moving. And as some individuals have heard me kind of talk about my own theory of how to both manage change and lead change, and to manage it and lead it in such a way that if the president or Chancellor Joe were to leave the institution, the transformation of the institution would not leave with him or her. Mm. And it's a very simple kind of David Wilson leadership model. So if you will, imagine a number line, 0 to 10. And I put this in front of the cabinet. I put it in front of my board. I put it in front of the university community all the time. And so at 0, we have tons of our colleagues there, faculty, staff, administrators, and I label that PASTIS, PASTISTS. And these are people who have been at the institution for a long period of time. They're like, old legacies. And then at 10, I label that lookers. And these are people who are fairly new to the institution sometimes, but they have never, ever, ever met an idea that they did not think needed to be implemented right away. And so my theory has been, I have to take 70% of the people who are at 0 and move them 7 spaces down that number line toward lookers and park them at 7 and keep about 30% or so, 3 out of 10 of those people back there to keep the institution honest. Mm. And then, believe it or not, I have had to take 7 of these lookers out here and bring them back 3 spaces to 7 and keep about 30% of the institution fresh on that interstate, anticipating what's on the exits. And when you get to 7, my theory is that's sustainable, that you have led the institution through all kinds of challenges. And that 7, if you will, is 70% of the institution right now. is understanding its relevance and how important it is to whatever the overall mission or goal is. And let me just conclude by saying this. So for me personally, I do say, when it comes down to where the rubber meets the proverbial road, we have to make sure that tomorrow is not like yesterday. And so for me, if you were to go back and look at my 15 years here at Morgan, I have not simply had 1 year of experience 15 times.
Right.
Every single year has been, if you will, something more, something different. So I have to challenge myself to stay in alignment with the shifting culture that students are bringing to the campus. Stay in line with where is technology going? How will AI impact the future of higher ed? That wasn't even a part of the lexicon. You know, AI 15 years ago, who would have thought it? So you got to keep yourself fresh, and you have to, I read everything, and I try and have all kinds of experiences that will always challenge me to grow and to learn and to be more relevant.
From your 15 years of experience, what's harder? Moving 70% of the institution to 7 from 0, or moving 30% from 10 to 7?
It's the first moving the 70%. Because that movement, most of it has to occur through persuasion, through a leadership model called persuasion, and especially with faculty. Right? And that's what I say to our deans and our provosts across the sector. It has been my experience that faculty members are not led by fiats. They really are effectively led when they buy into a vision, and then you persuade them that where you are taking the institution is a better place, and they have to see themselves in it, and they have to see themselves being co-drivers of the car.
Yeah.
And so that takes a little time. And so I would say it's been the most challenging, but also the most rewarding to spend the time, to put the time in to move those individuals, and then to step back and see how they own it when they get to 7.
And that is such a good mindset to have, because I will tell you, there are times in leaders that are banging their head against the wall for that piece that you're talking about, because of the time, because sometimes the time that it takes to move that 70% of people, it's almost like the industry moved forward another step by the time you even get them to the first place you wanted to go. And that's especially happening now as we see artificial intelligence. It's like, in 1 minute we're having conversations about implementing coding in our curriculum, and then the next minute artificial intelligence can code for you. So we don't even need coding anymore. It's like it evolved so fast. And we know, you and I know, and so many of our colleagues across higher ed know, that curriculum updates are usually intense process to update curriculum, to make it workforce focused, to make sure that it's relevant with skills and has the value that students see. How do you manage? It's just so hard, because it's how do we update curriculum? How do we move the product forward with the people at the same time? Because you could have people that move to 7 and the product's behind, or you could have product that moved to 7 and the people are behind. You have to move it all together.
Higher Ed PodCon is coming. Go to higheredpodcon.com. That's higheredpodcon.com to learn more. Do you want to accelerate your professional development? Do you want to get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content? That's right, original content, invites to special events, and more? Do you want to get all this while helping to sustain EdUp? Then go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and subscribe today.
Yeah, and it's been my experience that when you empower individuals to be a part of the movement, And when they get to the first place and they realize that, this is really a good place. And I know that I had to put in the work to get here, to leave some things behind. But now I'm in a place that is extremely fluid. And in order for me to continue to stay relevant, in order for my institution to continue to lead transformation, you may only be in this space, this kind of 7 space we talked about, who knows, for 2 or 3 years. But while you are there, you got to make sure that you spend some time outside of the institution. You have to understand what's going on in a larger environment. You have to be excited about that. And you have to really understand how you have no choice but to bring that back, have that inform your curriculum. And it's what we're seeing here at Morgan, because you're so bought into the competitiveness of your students. And you want your students to actually be extremely prepared for whatever it is that they're going to do after the institution. And you want to take credit as a faculty member for having played a major role in that. And we hold our faculty members up and say to them, oh, we want you out there outside of the institution, understanding the larger milieu, because otherwise you can be caught teaching something that perhaps, could be. I'm not saying that we're doing it here, Morgan. It could be 40 years old or 35 years old, and you're only teaching it because that's what your professors taught you when you were in grad school. And so I do think when you spend some time making sure that as the leader of the institution, as a president or chancellor, we're weaving all in and out of all of these dynamic places, right? And therefore, we are being exposed to, where AI is going. We are being exposed to this transformation. But if we don't figure out a way to have a critical mass of faculty, a critical mass of staff in knowing as much or more than we do, then it becomes, if you will, just a one-person show, and the institution will not move. And that's what we have tried to do here, is make resources available to our faculty and our staff so they can get out there and weave in and out of some of these same places to see that nothing stands still.
Epic.
How much of your success is attributed to getting people to that 7? Did you hit that sweet spot? Did you bring both of those ends together? And over the last couple of years, you just had that right mix to explode? I mean, is that, if you look back on and you look at this model and you look at the success, is there a point in time and you go, that was it, and here we are now busting at the seams?
Yeah. So my first couple of years here, they were challenging because I was bringing a transformational perspective to the presidency, and that transformational perspective was for
Change.
an institution. Yeah, it was change. It was change, and my predecessor did a very, very outstanding job as president. He had been here for 25 years, and so for 25 years, 75% of the faculty had been hired under that presidency.
Yep.
Most of the staff, most administrators. And so therefore, here I'm coming with a kind of but higher ed has moved now. And in order for us to be relevant for the future, we're going to have to do some things differently. And that, if you will, did not go over well in a couple of corners. And
familiar story for many years.
For the first a couple of years or so, that was written about. It was a national story, and then something happened there, if you will. My governing board began to change. The leadership on the governing board changed. Different regents were appointed to the governing board, and they came in with this understanding as well that we had to move the institution into the future without in any way diminishing the past accomplishments of the institution. And so if there's one thing that I would say was the catalyst for then moving forward with this transformational agenda, it has been the terrific relationship that I have developed over the last decade with my governing board and the fact that they trust my leadership.
It's amazing.
I have a great relationship with them. I have a great relationship with my chair. And they really value my perspectives. Joe, even during COVID, as you know, we had to make decisions here as institutions across the nation had to make, just spontaneously. And so I could not, if you will, consult all members of the board before major decisions were made. And so the chair of the board, Congressman Kwesi Mfume, who's my chair now, basically called a special meeting of that board and basically passed a resolution delegating to me the power to make all of these critical decisions without, if you will, having a special call board meeting. Yeah. And they would not have done that if, for example, we had not put in the time and put in the work to develop this mutually a respectable relationship. So I think a takeaway is that I found that you really have to also put in the time to get to know every single member of your governing board and to push that board to a point where they know you. They can almost predict what type of decision you will make, the ingredients that will go into the making of that decision. And they have to really, really trust the fact that at the end of the day, the decision that you make will almost always be in the best interest of the institution, not you per se. And I think that has been just absolutely pivotal in moving this institution forward. And then likewise, the relationship that we have been able to develop with our legislators. And I say this to individuals who are current presidents and who want to be presidents, especially public institutions. You really have to master, Joe, what I call 2 Ps. And both of those Ps are politics. And the small P is institutional politics. And so you got to really kind of get in and understand that. You got to understand, if you will, the meeting before the meeting after the meeting, who is talking to whom, right? In cabinet meetings and other meetings, X speaks, who speaks next, and blah, blah, blah. So you got to really kind of be very, very adroit in understanding that. And then the big P is politics, but that's elected politics. And so if you're running a public institution, you have to be on a first name basis with every member of your congressional delegation. You have to have the cell phone number of your governor, lieutenant governor, the speaker of the House, the president of the Senate, every single chair of every committee in the legislature, the education committee, the economic development committee, the appropriations committee. And so that's also been very, very important for us in order for us to be talking about $1.8 billion in capital, and also increasing our operating budget since I've been here, I think by 300%.
You brought up politics. I'm not going to get into politics. I think that's bad business for the EdUp Experience podcast, but I am going to ask you about economic impact, which is a big part of politics. Morgan State is graduating, lots of students. Those students are going out. Are they staying in the state? Are they leaving the state? And if they are staying in the state, what is that economic impact that you can track those Morgan State graduates to, and how much it's helping the local economy?
That's a very good question. So in terms of our student population, about 58% are in-state and then 42% out-of-state. Of the 42% that's out-of-state, even though we have 46 states or so represented, disproportionately, they come from the Northeast, from Massachusetts, and New York, huge, and Connecticut, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey, and so many of those students, when they come here, we have an outstanding engineering school. Our business school was just ranked amongst the top 60 business schools in the nation, if you will, by Bloomberg. And so they come here, they get these degrees, And quite a few of them out of state remain in Maryland. And so even though our out of state is 42% or so, who knows, about 15-20% of those students, when they come here and they get those engineering degrees, we're number one in the nation in graduating Black electrical engineers, Black civil engineers, Black industrial engineers, number one in finance and marketing. And so they are giving the state a return on that 1/3 of the tuition that the state had to invest in them, if you will. And so we conduct economic impact studies the way a lot of institutions do. And so we just released ours, I think last year. And so we have a $1.6 billion economic impact in the state.
Let's go.
And we crow about that. And now also, Morgan is moving rapidly to become an R1 very high research institution. And we also have metrics to look at. So what would be the impact? What would be the impact of the research that you conduct, right? What would be the impact, of the innovation coming out of Morgan? And so just last year, when the announcement was made of the top 100 universities in 2023 with regard to patents. Morgan came in 98, but we made the top one. It's just the first time an HBCU has ever made the list of the top 100 at 13 patents in 1 year.
You just made the list.
Yes, we did. And so because the list is public, I'm just going to reference one other institution just for kind of comparison. Yeah. And so for the 13 patents, those patents were produced on a research expenditure base of $29 million of expenditures in research. And we're number 98 with 13. So here's another institution that is, I think is 2 notches above us, 2 or 3, and maybe at like 91 or 92. But they had a research expenditure base of over $500 million. And they only were able to generate 3 more patents than Morgan, 16.
Yeah, that's
and so we say to the state,
pretty good efficiency for Morgan State.
Oh, absolutely. And so we say to the state, for every $10 million that you invest in research in us, and we say this on the Hill as well, we lead the nation in terms of patents per $10 million, as well as startups and new jobs. So when you're talking economic impact, you are talking our story.
I love it. Well, we're getting close to time, but I really do have to ask you where the K comes from and David K. It's just such a good story. I want you to be able to tell it here on EdUp if you feel comfortable.
Yes, and so 2019 was dubbed the year of the return with regard to Mother Africa. And that was a huge campaign to basically reach out to African Americans to say, okay, come, in the words of Africa, come back home, especially for those of you who haven't been back, come back to visit 400 years, since you landed in Virginia, 1619. And so as a part of that, they had an HBCU homecoming. And they decided to look across the HBCU space and select an HBCU leader to give their highest award to. And that was me. And so they bestowed upon me the Transcendent Order of the African Eagle Award. And I had to go to Ghana, to Accra, Ghana, in order to receive this award. And I thought that was going to be it. So they had a huge luncheon there, huge ceremony, and they called me forward after I made some remarks. And I didn't know what was happening. And they had the Ashanti Kings and the drummers. And then they had a griot that basically had looked at my life and started telling my life story. And then all of a sudden I realized that they are actually renaming me. And I have to admit that when the griot started reading my life story, and then started then moving toward Kwabena, which is what the K stands for, Kwabena, male child born on Tuesday. And they had draped me, even though it was 100 degrees outside there, they had draped me in this very thick kente cloth, and I'm sweating profusely.
Surprise!
But more than that, the tears started coming down my chin because I was not born with a middle name. And to have gone back to Africa during the year of their return and have them think about and honor the life that I had lived in the way in which they did it was one of the most single honors of my entire life. And so when I got back here, I decided to legally adopt that middle name as my legal name.
That is a very cool story. That is very cool. I'm glad. Thank you for sharing that here to the audience. Plus, a colleague in higher education, being able to be honored in that way. We look across so many of our colleagues and see the honors, but that is a very unique honor. So congratulations to you. And thank you for telling your story. And we want to wrap up. I got two very quick questions for you, David, as we wrap up. I want to give you just some open mic time. Open mic, tell us what else you want to say about Morgan State University. Anything at all that you want to add?
Morgan State is, I think, one of the most consequential universities in the constellation of higher education in America. And I don't say that in a cavalier way. The students here are extraordinary. So many of them are dripping in brilliance, and so many of them don't know it. And they are so non-arrogant about it. And I think one of the reasons why faculty just absolutely enjoy working with our students is to bring them to that level of recognition that you are outstanding. And then to see them at that point, wow, just take off and just fly, just soar like you wouldn't believe. So it's the students here that are so amazing. The faculty here, by and large, have absolutely embraced the mission of Morgan, and they give it their all. And that's very, very unique. We have endowed chairs here who are teaching freshmen and bringing those freshmen into an environment where they are, if you will, exposing them to cutting edge everything. And then our alumni, the alumni here, they're just as rabid about this institution, right? Because it gave them the foundation that they needed to go out and be the leaders that they are all across the nation. And so what I would say is that before I came here, no one could have convinced me that the places I had been and the transformational work that I had undertaken at all of those places, at Rutgers, at Auburn, and at the University of Wisconsin, had not defined my career, that I was happy and I thought I was going to stay in Madison forever. And I came here and I discovered my true purpose for this work. I thought I had already discovered that, but I had not. And that is really why I have remained president for 15 years, despite the fact that I have received offers from, so many, quote unquote, outstanding elite institutions to leave. I just don't think I could have found purpose any place else. So Morgan is a place where if you're looking for purpose, if you're looking for impact, if you're looking for joy, if you're looking to be in an environment where diversity is thick and everybody is under one umbrella, and we move an institution forward with an understanding that everyone is important in doing that. And as president, I'm simply the first among equals.
I love it. I love the way you speak about the passion too. Put on your looker's hat. Last question for you. What do you see for the future of higher education?
Did you buy your tickets yet? Higher Education's first podcast conference is coming July 12th. Go to higheredpodcon.com, higheredpodcon.com. Get your tickets. Do you want to get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content, invites to special events, and more? Do you want to accelerate your professional development? Do you want to get all this while helping to sustain EdUp? Then go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and become a subscriber today.
We have some work to do in higher ed, and I don't think we're running away from that. We have some work to do, and I think we are looking across the sector. I'm involved in the sector in so many ways. I'm on so many national boards, looking at where we are and where we are going. And so I would leave our conversation with a bit of optimism here. The American higher education system is the envy of the world. And it has taken decades and decades and centuries to build it to be the envy of the world. We have a constellation of institutions within that system of higher ed in America, unlike any other country. We have a comprehensive system of community colleges. We have a comprehensive system of very high research institutes, 150 plus of them. We have comprehensive regional institutions. We have HBCUs. We have tribal serving institutions. We have Hispanic serving. And so we have this incredible constellation of institutions. And students, both traditional and non-traditional, they have a place to go in this country to get a top shelf education in an environment that, if you will, is going to receive them as they come, but not graduate them as they enter. And I think we have to be careful in this space that we don't take a higher ed system that is the best in the world and embrace a cavalier, non-thoughtful approach to its destruction. That, if you will, would cripple this nation, and it would almost be impossible to reproduce what we have. That's not saying that we don't have challenges, some a crack here, a crack here, a crack there that we can go in and repair. But the American education system is not one where you need to tear everything down and try and start over. That would just be foolhardy. So we have something good going here. Let's not, if you will, kind of run after some wild goose, and then all of a sudden we wake up and we ask ourselves in 20 years, whatever happened to the top institutions that were in America? And we look up and you have 50 Chinese universities right now that are amongst the, 20 years from now, that are amongst the top 100 in the world. You have 15 Indian universities. And you ask, well, what happened to the American universities? And this particular period, we cannot allow those institutions to be gutted.
That is great advice. I agree. It's why we do this podcast, to tell the stories that we need to tell, because storytelling is a very important part of this. If we don't get the message out, no one will hear it. I would say that we got a message out today about Morgan State University with our guest, ladies and gentlemen. Here he is, Dr. David K. Wilson. If you want to know what the K stands for, you got to listen to the whole episode. President of Morgan State University. David, did you have a good time on the podcast today? Did you have fun?
Hey, Joe, I had a great time. And you were just absolutely incredible as a host. Thank you very much for having me. Sir.
That means a lot coming from you, and our audience, I know, will be excited to listen to this. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd.